Second.
Second, by first and second, any discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. First resolution we have up is a resolution authorizing the budget bond to transfer funds from the public defender and other supplies and expenses into the public defender, additional hours of social security to the fund, and 70 additional hours for staff. Comes to about $1,700 and some dollars.
Move it.
$1,769. Any discussion?
Yeah, get a second.
Oh,
I'll second it.
I thought you said second, sorry. Any discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next we have a resolution awarding professional service contract, RFP 21-CL-LEG-001 for videotaping of the Scioto County legislative meetings.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second. Okay, first and second. Any discussion on that topic? Eric?
Where are we standing on trying to bring this back in-house though? Like, we have technology in 2021. Could we save,
You know, 200.
245.
245 a meeting or 220 a meeting?
We don't really have the same technology that's used for that process and then used also to share. It would require some new equipment and of course time for our staff. Quite frankly, we've looked at it a couple times, even back when Kevin was the chairman, we talked about it, and I think for the 245, you're getting a pretty good deal. By the time we bought the equipment and dedicated the staff, took them off their other duties, probably the 245 is not a bad price.
Okay, any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, next up, we have a resolution authorizing.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not.
You all set?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing the budgetary modification for the Board of Election, accept and disperse election regarding early voting expansion, Eve grant disbursement.
Move it.
Second. First and second. Do we have any discussion on that? It's in the amount of $21,115.02.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yep.
do know that I talked to one commissioner this morning. They're a little busy with something that's coming up tomorrow, so.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a resolution authorizing budget bond for the Department of Board of Elections, accept and disperse election regarding technology, innovation, and election resources, tier grant disbursement.
I'll move it. I'll second.
Okay, do we have a first and second? Any discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we have another resolution, the JC5. The resolution authorizing the budget bond for the county attorney's office books and periodicals in the amount of $17,000.
I'd like to explain that. We recently discovered that Westlaw, being centrally billed, is divided up among departments that use Westlaw, and our department has been bearing a larger portion of the cost for the whole county. And in addition to that, I think we should. In addition to that, we signed up with Bloomberg. Bloomberg has the arbitration decisions, and I don't know if you're aware, but Christie just won an arbitration that was multi-year, terminating an employee. That arbitrator's award and decision was over 50 pages. So both sides did a lot of research on prior arbitration cases, and that's the only way we can access the arbitration database. I have an arbitration later this week seeking termination of an employee. Westlaw is what we use for everything else, but Westlaw doesn't have the arbitration database. So this will cover us through the end of the year, and instead of doing interfund transfers and shorting other departments, I think we'll just straighten it out at the first of the year or at the end of the year and go from there.
All right, move it.
Second.
Okay, we have first and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries.
The budget mods are going around, which is just approved for signature. Sorry? No.
There's a little learning curve there. Page 2.
Do we want to start with these then?
Go for it.
First, for the budget review, we have library, this will be on page 2.
What line are they again, Bill?
It's on page 2, the project number, which is, you know.
It says OCLC.
OCLC. About halfway down the list at 53,350.
Yep.
Same as they've asked for before. I'll move it. Second.
Okay, we have first and second. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Yes.
just a question on these. You know, I apologize because I can't remember previously, do they send a representative typically to these types of meetings?
They were all notified that they can, you know, when these committee meetings were, that normally that there's not a budget presentation, but if they want to have somebody here present to answer committee questions, then that's encouraged.
And is anybody here from the library?
Well, I've got a book out last week.
Nobody has, not usually the people that are normally.
No, that's not true, Terry.
I didn't say I read it. I've got pictures of it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm gonna vote for it, but I mean, for the record, you know, we're giving the library, you know, $50,000+. I'd like to see a representative here regardless of questions or not, you know. But
They do usually come to the budget meeting for the legislature and
Right.
say a few words.
they usually do it,
Mhm.
yeah, you know.
So you know, Mr. Chairman, if I may, this $53,000, it works out to about $4,300 or $4,800 for the Hannibal Library. So it's, you know, divvied up throughout the whole county. And I know that I've talked to our library director multiple times since August regarding this budget. So there has been communications, I'm sure, within each of our districts and the library boards and various connections.
And there are about 9 libraries that gets dispersed
Yeah.
all the way. Not that much money a piece. Do we have a first and second? All right. Any other discussion? Matt? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, next up, we have the Sportsman's Federation. That's also on page 2. The line just above that, it's $4,850.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
First and second. Any discussion on that one?
Anyone here from the Sportsman Federation?
Well, Mike's a member of it, I'm sure. No,
I just reiterate my last point.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have the Board of Elections. That's on page 36.
Oh. I move it for discussion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
For the motion.
Okay, got a first and a second. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't have anything to say.
No.
I was just moving. I'll give them a break for not being here though, because of Terry's point, they got an election to run tomorrow.
Right.
But no, I was just gonna move it.
I think that the, you know, we're gonna have 9 more days for a second early voting as well, so that was a big increase there.
Right.
You know, and I know they're constantly trying to update. The biggest increase is the repairs and maintenance line, I know. That was a big thing for some updates, so.
Okay, we have a first and second. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have the clerk of the legislature. That's on page 5.
Okay, I'm gonna point out a few things and then I'd like to two items to our budget. And A 1040-542700 membership and dues. We used to belong to the New York State Association of Clerks of County Legislative Boards, and I'd like to, it's only $100, I'd like to join that association again. And along with that, under other travel reimbursement, which is 544500, I'd like to go to their conference. And I'd like to put $600 into that one as well. It's a very informative conference. I think that we need to be more involved with this. I know at one time we were, and then it kind of went by the wayside. They've got some great conferences, great education pieces, and I just think it's going to be a betterment for our entire department by doing this.
545500.
Yeah, other travel reimbursement, 544500,
Is it mileage reimbursement or other supplies and expenses?
right here,
It's other travel.
other travel,
Yeah.
And you want 600 in there, Beth?
yes.
That isn't the verbiage.
Yeah, it says other supplies.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
5445 is not a line in her budget. What you'll be doing is creating the line. And,
So you want to create one.
right,
Okay.
the line was probably taken out a couple of years ago.
Yeah, when we stopped doing it.
What is it now, 54?
544500, other travel.
I'll make a motion to make the amendment to adjust the budget.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a first and second on the amendment to adjust the budget. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, now back to the original.
You got anything else on it?
I wanted to just point out a couple small things. Major decrease in postage on our end. And then in weights and measures, I increased 2 of his lines, one being because Jamie needs a portable pump for above ground gas tanks. And so I added $500 in there. It's been cost about that because right now what he's doing is trying to carry gas cans up to the portable pump and it's really hazardous. So I added $500 to that. And then this year he also needs, under reproductive expenses, he needs weatherproof seals and he also is in need of invoices. So I increased those 2 things. Other than that, it's pretty status quo.
When does,
Terry.
when does the, I don't know if it call them MOUs or contracts that we have under those.
And the state.
With the city, with the two cities?
Two cities, yeah, they just went out, but the MOUs have not, I want to say next year. But I'd have to double check that for you for sure.
I just want-
Yeah,
No,
every
no.
couple of years, we
Yeah.
recalculate,
I don't remember
we
last.
recalculate that we're being made whole, so.
Yes.
Betsy, on the rental equipment, what's the rental we're paying $1,400 a year?
That's the prover that we have. Instead of buying a prover, we rent it
Okay,
from,
what's that one?
Yes.
Yeah, so we made that
with
deal.
Cortland County.
Okay,
Yes.
right. Yeah, I can remember for sure. Thank you.
But a new cruiser, we're talking 100,000.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very
it was
pricey, it
crazy.
was like 60,000 or something. It was a lot of money.
All right, do we have a first and second on that?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, do now. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, next up, we have the county legislature, page 1.
What about the county attorney and the county clerk? What about the county attorney and the clerk?
Oh, wait a minute, I'm reviewing my other page. They changed it from the other thing. All right.
You do whatever though, Mr. Chairman. You call the shots, Mr. Chairman.
I have the proper numbers wrote on the other page.
Just tell us where we're
How
going.
about the county attorney for this?
Thank you. Budget is pretty self-explanatory. One of the things we had this, we haven't had in prior years are 4 Child Victims Act cases, 2 involve Camp Serby. We believe that those allegations concern a time period before Camp Serby was acquired by the county, and the county's not naming those yet. We'll just see where that goes. The camp is, however. I filed an answer in one case Friday
32.
involving an individual in a foster home and alleged to be in Hannibal. We have very scant records. Our records do not show that individual in a foster home in Hannibal at that time. They show the individual in another foster home several years divergent from the time of election of pleadings. And the last case is involving 2 sisters in foster care, with allegations of foster home in Oswego. And these go back to the early 80s, late 70s. So legal fees have changed slightly. We will need to have depositions without doubt in these cases. If they're not motion cases, there'll need to be certain discovery, maybe an economist. We also may have to retain a firm to sue insurance carriers to trigger coverage. Right now, we're trying to ascertain what coverage we had back in 79 to 81. And some of these carriers are saying to other counties, well, produce a policy, and then we'll tell you whether there's coverage. The problem with that is state record retention has caused issues for DSS and other departments because certain things can be purged after certain periods of time, and the state changed statute of limitations under CPLR for these actions to be brought, but many governments are having issues locating the records. And last but not least, the Town of Mexico is scheduled for a conference with the court on December 20th. And if that is not otherwise resolved, I expect to have decisions, discovery on that. We provide 11 bankers boxes, so I don't think there's much by way of discovery, but I certainly believe that there will be depositions on that. And that's also being handled in-house. So 2 of the CBA cases and the Mexico case are all being handled in-house. And so we want to maintain some flexibility to have experts and other people assist us in that regard. And it's the point where we need to look outside. I will certainly let you know.
I'll move it.
Okay, do we have a first?
I'll second.
A second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, carries, thank you. Next up, we have the county clerk. It's on page 29.
Just let the committee know that we're on pace to return again about 1.5 million in this budget. It's pretty standard from what most years are, but I'm going to entertain any questions if you have.
I would move it for discussion.
I'll second.
Okay, that's first and second, any other discussion?
Yeah, just, we're gonna have a transition in the clerk's office, come the new year here. I just wanted to, throughout this pandemic and even now into 2021, I think we've all heard from constituents about, the DMV and how tricky that whole COVID environment was for them. You guys did a great job, Matt, you filled in, really, really well. I know, it came on at a time that was not optimal in the middle of a pandemic. But I think you guys really did the best you could with what you were thrown with. So I know there's going to be, like I said, there's going to be a transition in that office, and I just wanted to say thank you, and you did a heck of a job, and of course to all your staff, who I know does a lot of the day in and day out work. Thank you guys for doing the best you can with what you were thrown at. I know it was frustrating, and there were bottlenecks and a lot of craziness, but I think you guys did a pretty good job, and here's to hoping to a little more normalcy moving forward. It seems to be running pretty good over there these days now that we're transitioning back into normal. But Matt, thanks for the leadership, thanks for filling in. I just wanted that on the record.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Yes,
Just want to check in on progress as far as the Fulton DMV goes. Is that still scheduled for sometime beginning next year?
Early next year, yep, so the B&G has been great, they've renovated, majority of it, just kind of getting that, squared away, and then we're gonna move some staff and.
Your budget's all set for that? We should have no problem?
Yes, that's, the budget that we directed this year is anticipating opening up the Fulton office.
Perfect, thank you.
Sure.
go ahead, Ed.
Will that include additional staff, and is that additional staff in there?
Yeah, there are 3 additional positions in there to kind of make everything as smooth and streamlined as possible.
Thank you.
I think one thing that we'll know, and we're not promising the world here, but we have been, we've had an inquiry about whether we'd like to do our renewals back in-house compared to having them sent to Utica. So I think that's, the committee needs to take note that that might be coming. Yes, there is a significant revenue stream that could come from that. However, we have to make sure that our staff's prepared to do that as well, which I know Kathy's getting them trained right now. But as soon as they flip that switch, that is definitely going to increase the workload of DMVs as well. So, if you hear more from maybe the next county clerk next year, some staffing issues as a result of that, just do note that it's up in the air right now, but it sounds like a high probability that those renewals. So when you get the renewal from New York State that goes to Utica right now, that could be going to East River Road, Oswego. So, it's a good thing, but we also need to be cognizant of workloads as well, just like this. Sorry, man.
No, that's fine.
Okay, we have a first and second. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Everybody opposed?
Oh.
All right, next up, we have the county legislatures, page 1.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal.
Okay,
I'll second it for discussion.
okay, we have first and second. Any discussion on it?
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
thank you. Our other travel and reimbursement line, we're going from 6 to 11,000. What's that, there's no explanation in the line, what's that reflect?
That's going to be because there wasn't as much travel this year and last year for NISAC. So I increased it with new legislators coming on. They may be wanting to go to the NISAC conference, and more people might be doing NISAC this year. If you remember this past year, it was virtual in the spring and then in person in the fall, but it was only in Syracuse.
Right.
So that's why they increased.
So that 11,000 is our typical level in a non-pandemic situation, right around 11,000.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. All right, we have first and second. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
No one else is. I'm gonna make,
Phil, our raises are reflected with the 3%, right? We just talked about that. So we will legislate tries to 3% raise. So I'm gonna make a motion to axe those raises, revert them to our current pay scale. We have, we got it. First off, our management contract's unsettled right now. This budget doesn't reflect, any raises for our department heads. We also have, a negotiation going on with CSCA and our caseworkers. I've taken the opinion that, when our people are paid and when our people are settled, then maybe we talk about a raise for ourselves, but until our people are in good situations and established and under contract, it just doesn't sit right with me to take a raise. So I'm gonna make a motion to eliminate, the legislative pay raises for this budget season. I just wanted that on the record.
Okay, we have a motion to eliminate the raises to 3%. Go first, looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Go first and a second. I guess we're calling for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No.
No,
No.
motion fails. Now we go back to the original.
Back on the original budget.
Pardon?
You're back on the original.
Right, now we're back in the original budget. Looking for a motion to move that.
already got it.
I'll second.
You already have it. Yeah.
Okay. So, any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I'll oppose.
Okay. Next up, we're going to real property. Okay, on page 23. Kevin.
Just real quick, as you can see that Betsy did a great job with the budget, always has, and she actually helped us twofold this year because the savings in the budget is actually from her leaving. So that's unfortunate, but actually she's less this year than last, so and there's not much meat.
Gary.
That 60,642, that's well within the range you think that any replacement would come to that.
Correct.
We're not gonna have. Motion?
No.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have the public defender.
46.
What did you get?
46.
46 or 43, I'm like,
Oh, I'm sorry, 43.
43.
I make a motion for discussion.
Have a motion for discussion.
I'll second.
First and second. Yes, Jimmy.
If I might start, what you have in front of you is the normal budget for the assigned council. Sarah Davis is here to answer any questions you may have. However, if you, next week, you're scheduled to vote on whether to create a regular public defender office. If that happens, then after that, we would make changes to this. I've got, in other words, assigned council would be, this 1170 would become assigned council. And the Hurl Herring money and certain expenses would be removed from this, and that money would be used to create a public defender office. And just so you have, this is what I'll pass around what a budget would look like for that. Just a couple of numbers I wanted to. Now, you're going to see a whole bunch of positions, so don't have heart attacks. Those are just placeholders because, and a public defender's got to mirror in some ways a DA. But this would just be assured that we would have enough money in each line. The key things on this to look at are, the yellow line is your total available Hurl Herring money to pay for this, $2.8 million. And I want to give kudos to Sarah. She wisely did not sign any agreements or contracts with the state on this Hurl Herring money for year 2 and 3, which accumulates, so that's why we have this much. And the green line is how much we could use out of that money towards renovating the Bunner Street for the public defender portion. So it's all paid for by the state. And if you notice, this all nets out to zero. That's the zero county cost. So we can go deeper into this if the legislature chooses to create a public defender office next month or next week. And at the final budget workshop or hearing, these changes could be made. But I just wanted to let you know that what you approved today in the assigned council could change based on what you approve regarding public defender next week.
Terry?
So let me get this straight here. The $3.6 million worth of revenue under assigned council, does that stay?
All but, was it 2.5 of it is Hurl Herring, the rest is ILS revenues. So that assigned council is not going to cost you anything more than it already does.
So we're gonna still have a $1.5 million bill. We're gonna
Yes,
have a zero bill for this.
right.
So our only expense for indigent legal representation will be 1.5 million as it is right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes. All of this, Terry, is subject to approval of the contract by ILS. But I've been in really close contact with them through this whole thing. If you look at my budget, there's a big undesignated Hurl Herring fund line. That's the money that's gonna go over to the PD office. So it's sitting in my budget right now, not designated for anything. I just had to reflect it.
So, if I may. So, I see on here one question, and, I'm not one to want to spend a lot of money. We just had that discussion about the Disney road trip. But anyways, the public defender's at 130, max reimbursement's 150. I think we're gonna have a hard time finding a public defender who's gonna run that office for 130,000, let alone 150,000. And your district attorney makes 200 and however many $1,000, and they're doing the same workload, if not more.
It's actually gonna be a bit more, and I do agree with it. Phil, can I just address that?
Sure.
I've talked with ILS for 3 years about, ILS is the grant agency I work with that distributes the Hurl Herring money. My proposal was 175 and they were on board for 175. Last week they told me that 175 they realize is more than they've given any other county for the chief PD. So the county is more than welcome to give someone 175, but they're only gonna write 150 of it.
Do we have any sort of comparisons with other
Yes,
counties?
that's how I've asked HR to do this, and reach out to similar sized counties, and surprisingly, the PDs were coming in around the 130, some were less, some a little bit more. So I put it at that 130 because that's the number I heard the legislature kick around. I wouldn't worry too much about that right now because this is why I want to suggest that we budget as though it's a full office. That gives you the leeway if you've got to negotiate with someone. Not all these positions are going to get filled next year. But this is what a PD is going to look like. You should budget for it so that as you move forward, the contracts with ILS reflect a realistic picture. The other number to take a look at is the one in the far lower right-hand corner, $3.142 million. That's what we get in year 5 and supposedly every year forward to pay for this. So we budgeted down at 2.8 and a big chunk of that is renovation. That leaves some room for many years of increases to salaries or other costs. I don't recommend that we budget to use all of it in the first year or else you are going to pay increases going forward.
But this money's always going to come forward yearly for the sick.
That is what they are saying. It's part of the court settlement.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So talk to me about this renovation. I mean, we're earmarking almost $1.3 million. They're set to occupy the space on Bunner Street, vacated by,
That's what we're looking at right now. We don't necessarily have to use all of that. That's what's available in this budget to put towards renovating space, whether it's at Bunner Street or somewhere else, for public defenders. Renovating a spot for public may only cost $500. But that's what's left over when you consider other realistic costs that a PD may face.
Jerry?
But it isn't the plan for the public defender to take the whole half of Bunner Street there.
No.
Board of Elections still is our number one
Yeah.
goal to get in over there, so.
See, to me, I wanted to let you know that, because to me, that's good news, that, you know, we've got work we gotta do over there, and we've got a source to pay for it that won't come out of our, off our tax levy.
right. That is, yeah, I agree.
Okay, we have a.
So we basically hold the public defender aside until we have our public hearing, and then we can come back and act after that.
Right, so today, you'd be acting only on the assigned counsel as it's presented today. But I thought you should know what the future lies, or looks like, should a public defender's office be approved.
Great.
All right, we have a first and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Next up, we have insurance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The insurance budget is in at 1.25 this year. We're still receiving applications from the departments. We won't have a firm quote until 30 days prior to renewal. Typically, insurance costs are driven by various factors. One is the budget itself.
Page 26.
Page 26.
Sorry.
Driven by one is the budget itself. The larger the budget, not the county operations are, that's a factor for insurance. Experience and claims, another factor. We had a traumatic brain injury last year at one of our facilities. I anticipate receiving a summons complaint on that. We received a notice of claim already. That will certainly drive us some insurance. Buying new vehicles and equipment, inland marine and automotive, placing a 10-year-old vehicle with a new vehicle, they're more expensive to insure just because they're more expensive to repair, they cost more, not depreciated. And things like towers and building and things like that. So that's what we have for a placeholder. We're still part of NYMER, which is a municipal reciprocal. The county is an owner, if you will, of NYMER with other municipalities, and if they pay dividends, we do receive dividends back. We have in the past. I'm not aware of any dividends so far this year, but let's hope we do receive some.
I'll make a motion.
Second. Okay, we have a first and second. Any other discussion on that? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
We have one more. I apologize, we forgot on the agenda. We've got a new department. It's under the legislature, similar to Weights and Measures and Clerk. That's the Office of Strategic Initiative. That's why I asked Dave to be here. It's on page 3.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this was just recently formed, and there was not a budget request that went in, so numbers basically came from some conversations that Phil and I had. There will be a budget request to move some of these funds into different lines, call our attention to repairs and maintenance of equipment. That was a placeholder. We're looking at various software programs that can help not just manage these funds, but also there's some that is specific to all grants, and we're considering whether or not within this office we can kind of bring in all the grant activity throughout the county into one software program and better understand what's out there. That particular solution also has a grant seeking module in it, so that could be some benefit to us as well. And then there's other options that are more comprehensive relative to the overall county budget and how this office fits within there, and automating some of the budget processes that we currently use. So we don't have the budget modification for you to address today because we're still doing the reviews of these various software solutions. And I'm hoping to be able to make a decision on that by the end of this week. So sometime soon we'll be asking to just move some funds between lines because, for example, a contract to implement a program. So the software company comes in and develops a system, merges it with Munis so that they talk to each other. The cost for those activities would be in one line versus the subscription to the software would be in a different line. We don't really know those numbers yet, so that's why we haven't brought it to you today.
Sure. Yeah, do you have a motion yet? I'll make a motion for discussion.
Second.
Okay, we have first and second for discussion.
Phil, this 250,000, does that come out of the 5.2 million that were allocated to use for county stuff, so it isn't above that?
Yeah, we got
How does that
would
work?
this count as a government service, or is it, we could count this out of money that responds to the economic impacts of COVID.
So it isn't hamstrung by that 5.2?
No, I think we gotta take a look as which, you know, if it's eligible for one of the other categories, we could take it out of that instead of borrowing 5.2, yeah. I would argue that, one thing I would point is since this new office is gonna be involved in things other than ARPA, as other strategic initiatives, we may have to use a portion of it out of government services, but, perhaps not all.
David, in your opinion of the software for the grant application, is there potential in there to review or solicit potential grants for the townships as well, or we could assist them in some of their strategic planning?
So some of the solutions do offer unlimited participants. Some have specific user numbers and you pay if you want more. The one that we're looking at that is geared specifically to grants and not so much to budget, that does allow for unlimited users, and there's likely a way that we could provide them an opportunity to piggyback on what we do. And then some also are more comprehensive in how they do the reporting as well, which would be beneficial to towns and villages. The management of a grant is often the part that keeps people from actually applying for it. And some of these actually, because they're built for grant management, they have the standard government forms in there, and once you input the data, it prints out, you know, it spits it right into the form for you, so you don't even have to really have people who are not experienced in grant reporting could easily use this kind of software to help them manage and report those. So it might encourage more grant applications because the back end would be easier for them.
I know it's a significant expense for some of the smaller villages and townships. Yeah, thank you.
Like,
And I also think it's important that we give the towns and so forth some hand. They'll have the staff to do some of this stuff, but I think it's important that we do some, we ought to work with them as much as we can.
yeah, so again, one of the things that I've talked to Casey about, because she's going to be part-time helping this department, is taking on, if we do adopt one of these systems, one of her roles would be to train those people on how to use it.
Okay.
So.
It's important, I think.
Phil, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yeah, something I just noticed. I did want to request a change in this. This budget, as you know, is supposed to be entirely funded through ARPA. One of the last minute changes to this was recognizing the state retirement cost of $16,878. So that, but we didn't, I didn't change the federal ARPA revenue line to match that. That's why you're seeing a $16,000 net
I didn't
cost.
think that the
So-
ARPA could pay for retirement though.
It cannot pay your pension bill, but if you have to hire people, or hiring people to do ARPA-related work, it'll cover their full cost. So we can, what I wanted to suggest is that the committee, increase the ARPA revenue from, that's $250,000, increase it by that $16,878, and that'll lower the tax levy by that amount. And bring this department to a net zero.
I'll make a motion to amend it on the advice of the county administrator.
I'll second.
Okay, but first and second, any other discussion on that amendment?
You sound doubtful.
Well, I am, because you told me like a broken record over and over, we can't pay retirement, we can't pay retirement, and here we are paying retirement, so I don't know.
Well, you can't pay your overall pension bill with it, but if you can, from what I've been told and what I've read, if you hire employees to do ARPA work, it'll cover their full cost. If it's wrong, I'll bring it back and say,
We can put them in.
sure you will.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed to it? Opposed. One opposed. Now back to the original?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions, one for the county administrator. So we know our ARPA funds are broken into different types of buckets for different utilizations, right?
Right.
To Terry's question, we're looking at, I want to make sure I understand my numbers here, right? With that, just negating that amendment that we just put in, we're looking at an annual expense for the office of this $250,844.61. Now, that's being funded completely out of ARPA money. What bucket of the ARPA money is that, are we going to be utilizing that out of?
Well, as we discussed, I gotta figure that out under eligibility. It could come out of our own government services end, or it may apply to the, responding to the economic, impact of ARPA, or of the pandemic. Because a lot of what this budget, or office is gonna do is administer these funds in a way to help mitigate the economic impact and to create better opportunities out in the community. Just got to review what category they're going to put that in. Well, that may come out in the reporting. Now, the reporting is quite extensive with a lot of categories you have to place buckets of money in. And I don't know if Dave, if you've gone any further into that or not.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, just with respect to the buckets and the relative amounts in those, there's a bill that's been passed by the Senate, and it's in the House of Representatives now, that would provide a lot more flexibility on how to use these funds. Our federal representatives have heard mostly from not just the counties, but from towns and villages, that this is a very complicated process, and you wanted to help us, but you gave us something that we can't really understand or figure out how to use, and you've limited it in a way that in some cases there's towns and villages that are saying, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to give it back. That's how complicated it was. So they're trying to make it more flexible and easier, and this particular bill in some cases will make it so that cities, towns, and villages could take all of their money and just use it on one project, as opposed to having to fit into the four original categories. From counties, we're in a category where that 5.2 could raise as high as 15. There's the original bill calls for it to, for our size of allocation, it would go from 5.2 to 10. But then there's talk about the 10 being on top of what your original allocation was. So it could go as high as 15 into that use whatever you want for government services category. So it's a little bit cloudy right now. It moved very fast through the Senate in a process that's uncommon. It was 100% bipartisan, very uncommon also in this political environment we're in. So what happens in the House of Representatives may to be seen, but it'll happen very soon, I believe, and we'll know better just how much flexibility we have to spend these.
Go ahead, Tom.
Phil, I know, I apologize, Phil, because I think we discussed this at one point. Is there any sort of sunset on this office? It's completely funded by ARPA money. Does the county have any type of timeline in their head on when this office would sunset?
All of the money has to be allocated by 24 and spent by 26.
So 26.
Right. Yeah, and well, if there's any follow-up after 26 on reporting, it might extend a little bit into 27, but I don't know that we'll need to, we don't know whether that's going to be necessary or not yet.
Okay.
Dave?
One of the changes in this proposed legislation is actually shortens that period. Originally, it was December 31st of 26. This new bill moves that to summer of 2026, date uncertain still. So the purpose of that, I think, is to allow an extra 6 months or 5 months, whatever they decide, to finalize the reporting and have it wrapped up by the end of 2026, not carried into 2027 with all the reporting and everything afterwards.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just end on this. This is a lot of money to create an office, and it's very less to do, Dave, with the person that's going to be running it. I'm sure you'll do a fine job. I would be, saying this with anybody that was going to come to this. To me, this is another level of bureaucracy that is just not a sound investment with once in a lifetime money. So I'm gonna be opposing the creation of it. It's just I just think this money can be put elsewhere, and I think we should be simply born out of community development. I don't think we need another layer, but I know others feel strongly the other way, but I do not. So I will be opposing the creation of this office. I would like to see that $1 million+ investment over the next 4 years go somewhere else, frankly. So thank you.
Ed, go ahead.
Counter to that point, this is a tremendous amount of money, and but it is a limited amount, and I think the fact that we're being proactive to organize the expenses of it and try to maximize the efficiency of using those funds certainly justifies this type of detail and management, so I'll be supporting it.
Dave?
Just one final thing, recent report just within the last couple of days from the Treasurer's Office. You had originally allocated $250,000 for the restaurant recovery program, and I know you're talking about doing something in addition. According to the Treasurer's Office, 55 businesses processed claims for a total of $186,850, so you didn't use the whole $250. Which means that you helped infuse $373,700 into the local economy through that program. The only small issue, there were 26 vouchers that were recorded as being used twice, and from what I can find out so far, in almost all those cases, it appears that that was accidental. 2 people were issued vouchers with the same numbers. And in most cases, we can verify that that wasn't an attempt at fraud because the vouchers, while they had the same number, were for different dollar amounts and issued to different people. So overall, I think it ran pretty well. And Kevin, I don't know if you want to add anything, but his staff, from what I've been told, had little to no complaints about the work they had to do.
No, you're right. No.
Okay, we're back to the original. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed. Thank you. Go ahead.
Just a general point, In lieu of where the administration is going with us becoming energy dependent versus independent and the cost of gasoline and energy going in the future, what kind of strategy did you use across the budget for gas costs?
Nearly all the departments already accommodated that in their requests, and I talked to them about that at the beginning of or when we met. So I think you can see throughout, there's some increased costs when it comes to gas. Plus, they also look at, are they getting newer vehicles, or are they gonna have fewer vehicles? So it's not uniform all the way across.
I was gonna say, because I looked at it and I.
And if they often have a fund balance left in that line at the end of the year, then we don't touch it. So we'll keep it the same.
We're gonna have to get up charging stations.
You're gonna get us a charging station?
Oh, I said by 2035, we're all gonna be driving Jetson mobiles around here, need charging stations.
If you saw anything that you want to ask, looks off, let me know.
A diesel motor I can buy.
Just,
Yeah, sure.
that's okay.
That's kind of.
That's fine. Real quick, we're gonna be interviewing, Dave's actually involved in the interviewing for the real property director. It's gonna occur Wednesday. There's 3 candidates. And so we'll have something come to the committee relatively soon. As well, the auction, we did $1,967,000. I think I budgeted $2 million, so I was off a little bit. I apologize. But we have 23 properties sitting and waiting that are in limbo right now because of the state moratorium, eviction moratorium. So once that comes through at the end of January, we'll move those.
Right.
Also, the RFP for the auction company will be going out in the 1st of January.
The auction was over, you said in 4 hours or something?
Actually, it was 2 hours. 2 hours, 90 properties. We used to spend days preparing.
Right.
So, but we did have some property owners, or some people that bid and got the bid, walk in and pay their down payment, and we got stuck with the properties. I guess properties weren't the best this year. So we may have to do something on in the coming months to get them off our books.
So you'll be reporting on that sale?
Yeah, and what we'll do is, I always like to give you the list of who purchased it, and the amount, all of it, transparent, and right down to the...
Thank you.
But can't you can start putting for sale signs on the ones that didn't sell, right? If they don't have the moratorium. If they're not.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have the authority to do that without us, right?
Yeah, the only problem is there's just not a lot of money doing it that way, single. You do them in a group, and in an auction, it kind of speeds it up, and that's what these people ended up doing, is they just went way too high for their bid.
Yeah.
So, we may not have many. And the other thing is, we have about 5 buybacks that'll come to the committee next month that had to be pulled from the auction for some unknown reason, legal reasons. That's it.
All right, yeah.
Just if I could, on the auction process, I was approached this year by the snowmobile clubs and ATV folks. That, I don't know if you noticed, but there were several vacant parcels that in some cases were very narrow strips of land, not really anything you could develop. But one thing that would be beneficial to both of those groups would be places that were along their existing system, where they might be able to construct parking lots for the people who come and use it. And with respect to snowmobile clubs, this would eliminate some of the concerns that the towns have about people parking on the roads in the wintertime and they can't get through the plow.
Right.
And their request was whether they might be given some priority in the process for bidding on specific parcels that kind of fit into that category. Not likely to be developed, not very beneficial to anybody, but it could make for a nice spot to get people off the road during the season of those 2 clubs. For your consideration for next year's auction.
We have to refer to it as, we can't use the word priority,
Right.
you know.
We'll have to talk to her.
Because
I
that means,
just, I
no,
said,
you're right, you're right.
I take your request, I don't know, I'll bring it to the attention of the folks that can answer it.
Well, you should check some of these properties that may not have sold or something and see if any of those are.
Yeah.
Good
thought. Good thought.
Okay. We finished?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, we have first and second, we are adjourned.